Hi, Stacy. Stacy, you sound like a high touch leader and a high touch teacher, and that goes a long way in the students that you're leading and teaching. And you're very responsive, and that always covers a multitude of challenges in a course. So I know that your students are still resonating with your teaching interaction. So that's a good opportunity because some of the things that you point out are not hard to fix. And we'll look at your two course rubrics here in just a moment. It's something that you mentioned, and yet your students are motivated, they're non trads, and that you want students not to have the same experience you had, right? And that clearly comes out in what you have submitted and where you're headed with your goals. And a quick question about the collaborative, well, not so much a question, but maybe more of an observation. With the desire to facilitate more engagement, that's positive because that's the world that they live in, right? And that's the world that they're currently working in as adults, and the one that they're going to continue working in. And if they can excel in that collaboration and engagement with technology, that'll also position them as well. You pointed out, and I could see it in your rubrics as well, for a better flow and a better overall course design. And we'll just kind of want to be thinking about tweaks to make as opposed to an overhaul. It doesn't sound like that's necessary. Sounds like you're doing a lot of things well. One thing concerning accessibility is you may want to partner up with the Office of Disability Services just to see what one or two, three things that you can do to move your course in the right direction. Now, as far as layout, something I like to do is get feedback from my students. Now, they're fully online and they're non-trads. They may not be able to come to a campus experience, but one possibility is perhaps you have access to some of your students, on-campus students, or you can do it by Zoom. And this is what I typically do. I invite students in, or I invite them online to a Zoom session and have them give me some feedback. I usually do something, I call it this or that. I look at module designs or assignments, and I put one example on one side, one on the other, and say, which one do you prefer, this or that? And then I give them pizza, or if they do it online, sometimes I'll float everybody a $5 Starbucks card. I'll bring 5 people there. I'll have them with me for a half an hour. I'll get some feedback from them because often we are wondering or hoping what it is that the student needs or want in our experience, and they're very willing to tell us if we ask them. And I've found out that it is so much easier for me to facilitate meaningful change when I kind of take out that middleman of me making changes and then me and then the student, and hoping that that change works well, and looking at feedback along the way or at the end of the course, as opposed to saying, hey, here are some changes that we're making. What do you think? So let's look at your course reviews. I really appreciate your openness and honest assessment of your current teaching and instructional practices. Course design does seem like an opportunity for improvement, and some of the things that we just talked about could help to facilitate easy navigation of the course. Sometimes just getting 2 students on board and saying, hey, what would make it easier for you to navigate through this course? And something like insertion of modular unit objectives is an easy, quick fix that you can jump on and move in the direction of better design right away. And we already talked about meeting with Office of Disability Services or whatever office it is on your campus, perhaps an Office of Instructional Design, where you can go in and say, hey, I want to get my course more compliant. How can you help me? And there are some other resources as well. University of Central Florida has a UDL course that you can take and drop your course in. If you're in your LMS's Canvas, you can even put your course in there. But most, like drop it in and it'll give you feedback. But most LMSs now have an accessibility checker, and that's another option for you as well. As far as course content and orientation and providing information concerning hardware and technology, often your Office of Instructional Design or Technology Services can also provide some information for you, or you can link to your university's website. But the orientation video is something small that you can do that will pay big dividends. And yeah, I think those were the larger things that I wanted to address. And let's take a look at your other review, your Oscar. You have a welcome video, and you said that you can make that a little more inclusive. I often use Animoto to do a video that I send out prior to the beginning of class that steers them into the welcome video. When they hit my class, I just give them kind of something high energy and introduce myself and welcome them to the course and kind of create that sense of expectancy. And this was accessibility, I believe, and technology tools. Yeah, policy. Most universities, and I'm sure yours does, has a policy somewhere, and you can save yourself a lot of time and don't have to recreate the wheel. Just find out what's already available that you can connect your students to. Design and layout. And logical, consistent layout here is, again, something that you can use the Quality Matters rubric. You could use this rubric to just kind of go through your course. Now, one thing that I always say is no matter what shape my course is currently in, if I'm not satisfied with it or there are things I want to work on, if I make one change, I'm already moving in the right direction. If I do 2 or 3 or say each time I teach this, I'm going to, do 3 or 5, between 3 and 5 things to really up the level of this course. Well, in a year or 2 or 3, you'll have a really, really high functioning course. But sometimes we just can't do it all at once. I think those were the large things that I wanted to address. You have a passion for your students. You're very attentive, and you're very engaged and responsive to your students. And I think that gives you the pedagogical capital while you're working with your students to making the changes that you're in this course to learn and to make. Thank you so much for your submission.